love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Let me wind it back. Out of Houston, I would say let's screw it, but we're gonna actually mix it up since it's all going down. It seems like just West Coast with Kendrick Lamar doing his thing. We'll remix it. It's gonna be sports rap with Bryan and AD joining me today. Welcome to episode 590 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, a show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports. Institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts, as I said, Bryan and AD. Bryan for AD. Drew, bringing in here and giving us some love. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live, as we always do, to the radio legend, Ralph Cooper, Radio Hall of Famer. When I say legend, multi-Hall of Famer for that, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Let me start it out appropriately for all those that do celebrate the holiday by its name, in terms of Happy Thanksgiving. For those that just celebrate in terms of being with your family, want to acknowledge that as well. But I hope everybody, regardless, is having a great and wonderful day. You know, some of y'all are football fans out there. We tend to cover it from an HBCU perspective, but we're not blind. We know there's some NFL games that be played. Hopefully, if you're a fan of NFL, that is working out for you one way or the other. In my little text chains with some of my Alpha brothers, a couple of them are from Detroit, Chicago, so they matched up well. Well, you know, the one from Chicago talking about he hopes his Christmas gift is the coach not remaining under contract. With that being said, we have that taking place with the HBCU landscape. We kind of broke that down on Tuesday. So we'll move and see what your thoughts are. On the back end of this, we'll talk a little bit about the HBCU football game today. Early on, in terms of the score, we'll take a deeper dive in the second half of the show. But this was a matchup that featured the SWAC versus SIAC, which means you're talking about FCS Division I and Division II. So I have some data on that. But before I do that, without holding these folks any longer, Bryan, how you doing today?
It's gotten so bad, Doc. Well, first off, happy Thanksgiving. I am thankful for the day, but my afternoon of television has been so blah that I resorted to watching a Netflix movie that is not only a musical, but it's also in Spanish. So I've been watching captions. So, but it's a riveting movie. It is a good movie. That is how sad my evening has gotten. Thanks in large part to the Chicago Bears.
That is different. That is different. I'll leave it at that. I did see Piano, the movie last night with the family. That was what many people have talked about, how good it was. So I appreciate that. With that being said, AD Drew, how you doing today?
You saw this school. How you think I'm doing?
Correct. We weren't gonna beat you up too quick on that. And we also know that you might be just a tad bit tired because you've been on the road doing your other duties. We're getting a little break before you do that. But good to see that you had safe travels. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Too bad the Tuskegee defense didn't have safe travels down the road to Montgomery, as the defense did not show up.
So were you watching that on your iPad, your iPhone?
No, I was actually in the hotel room by the time.
Okay, by then you had made it to the hotel.
By the game came on, and I wish I wasn't in the hotel room by the time the game came on. And you guys, we're all in the same chat group. It got so bad, I had to put in the chat group. I was like, "Is there any basketball on today that I can watch?" Because watching between the NFL game and the HBCU football game, it was like no entertainment the first 3-4 hours that I was in this hotel room, man.
That meme you put up in terms of TU talking how to cover on the defense was hilarious. I wish I could show that for everybody. But he had the cheese heads and he had fingers going like everywhere. And literally, you saw a player put up his hands and like point back, and somebody's like, "You know me?" Ever, please, somebody. That's what the defensive coordinator said. Somebody, please.
And the plays of Tuskegee defense, and I know we're gonna get into this, but I gotta say this: the plays Tuskegee defense was getting beat on are basic plays. I mean, this was, you got a man in motion. One of the basic things of middle school football is who's covering him, who got him, he in motion. I got him, you got him, somebody.
Nobody's got it.
So it's, so those are the things that was frustrating as a fan.
Sure.
That simple things. It wasn't like they just out schemed.
Right.
And,
so that makes
brain fart.
Exactly.
They say turkey sleepy.
We're going to get into a little more of that. But to your point, I did want to get up there to this point that the record, and you'll take a little deeper dive in terms of that's 4 straight from Alabama State. But I wanted to look at the HBCU FCS D1 matchups against Division II. And coming into the season, we had a lot of folks thinking that there were a couple of matchups that would probably likely or could favor SIEC, and some people thought definitely should favor the SIEC over either the MEAC or the SWAC in terms of certain matchups. Well, at the end of the day, the record was 9-1. 9-1, so 90% of the time when you had these matchups featuring Division I HBCUs versus D2, and we kind of got a little bit of talk about this, is the gap widening in terms of FCS, particular HBCUs versus D2s. I wanted to get your opinion on that. Last year there were a couple of more, but even overall last year, there was a pretty big discrepancy in terms of the win-loss record when you look at it. And we tend to remember the D2, if you would, wins, not so much the FCS wins because they're supposed to happen. So that's fascinating. Drew's having a little technical difficulty, and we'll bring him back up. But Brian, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't know if it's what was it last year? I mean, I know that there was one last year, wasn't there? I think
there were at least two. There were at least 2, maybe 3 wins. They were all early, so they probably stuck with you. You had the Central State win over Valley. That was in Chicago. Remember, I had the question on the media day, and the coach went off about their trip. And then you had Pine Bluff. You had Alabama State actually losing to Miles. It was a near upset the following week with Miles going to Arkansas Pine Bluff. But oddly enough, Coach said that while he got the win in Alabama State, he lost so many players in that matchup that it actually hurt him the rest of the season, including the matchup that he almost had win versus Arkansas Pine Bluff. So I think there might have been one in the MEAC. So I think there were 3, maybe 4, but it was essentially 10 site games.
That would seem to me last year would seem like an outlier to me. Like that would seem rare. 0 or 1 would be the norm. Like if I walked into every season and you asked me how many Division II teams are going to beat an FCS team, I would go 0 or 1 just on GP. And then if you ended up with more than that, okay, now I'm saying, okay, well, look at the circumstances that resulted in that occurring. So yeah.
Yeah, and to the point, there was maybe like 2 close games essentially when you look at it.
Right.
One of them obviously led to the field goal win by Clark Atlanta, which shocked everybody, not just because it was D2 over FCS in that matchup. It was
didn't shock everybody, Doc. I'm not.
No, you called it out early.
I knew that one. I called that one out way before.
You correct, and I said Clark Atlanta would be good, but I'm saying generally the pundits outside of us geniuses, most folks were shocked not so much by just that a D2 beat a FCS in terms of HBCU, but the fact that Clark Atlanta, a team that hadn't been very good, even though folks like myself and you said that Clark Atlanta would be a different team and would be in the hunt. People like Stephen Gaither and some of the other D2 experts thought I was crazy, but hey, 80 Drew, before we take this break and get into what will be our first interview of the night, I did want to get your thoughts on that too. We were saying the overall record for D2s versus FCS at the HBCU level was 9-1. And most of those games weren't close. Do you see that as a trend where there's more separation in terms of FCS D2 for a while? We would see games. We could see that they could play together or whatever, but these scores are getting a little bigger. And I wonder how much of that is that you got that many more FCS that are doing the scholarship limit when you have not as many D2s doing the maximum of that limit. So the spread is even bigger than what you would think normally from a 63 to 36. It could be wider than it was maybe when a lot of HBCUs were offering 50 and more D2s were offering closer to 36.
Yeah. Now, what I find interesting when you look at the trend, Dr. Cavil, is the fact that the SWAC has dominated the SIAC in the crossover matchups, whereas the CIAA has gotten a lot closer to their MEAC brethren. When you consider that how close these conferences are tied together, SWAC and the SIAC are tied together, and the CIAA and the MEAC, because those almost wins occurred CIAA MEAC matchups. Winston-Salem should have got themselves a win. Virginia Union should have gotten themselves a win this particular season. That's just two off the top of my head. The
Virginia State, Norfolk State was really close too. There's only touchdown there, to your point. And let me take you off the hook because the MEAC folks are gonna be like A&T and Hampton are not in the MEAC anymore. But I get your point.
Yes. Yeah, but you understand those former CIAA roots. And I just said like that. Those schools that had those former CIAA roots. Oh, but absolutely. The difference that I am really concerned about is the difference between the SWAC. I mean, and the SIAC, whereas SIAC was good to get one a year.
Yeah. Good point. We're going to take our first break.
Alabama State. Now this year,
a little bit there, 80 Drew. I don't know if it's me or you, but we're up against. We're going to take this first break and come back on the other side and be able to start this interview.
HBCU football fans, this year's Cricket Celebration Bowl has a new date. A champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 14th as the MEAC and SWAC champions meet once again. Join us in Atlanta for championship football, interactive fan experiences, and iconic marching bands. It's an HBCU family reunion that you don't want to miss. See who will be crowned the next HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Barcade. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new birthday toy. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends.
ESPN Events Band of the Year, a title reserved for the absolute best in the world of HBCU marching bands. A season-long competition that culminates in Atlanta on Friday, December 13th. Drum majors, percussion, drill, auxiliaries, musicality. All aspects will be adjudicated by expert judges in the world of college bands. 4 bands will qualify for the big stage, where national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for ranking updates throughout the season. And join us at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 13th. For event and ticket information, visit bandoftheyear.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Will with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, I told you they're on assignment. I think they're just somewhere eating some turkey. Probably turkey sandwiches, because I know Mike going back for seconds. Charles try to sneaks in there too. He acts like he's working out and stuff like that, but he knows how to do the cheat code. But with that being said, without further ado, we have none other than a friend of mine. I'll say that. I know him just a little bit. I don't know if he claims me like that, but interview with Coach Tremaine Jackson, head football coach of the 10-0 nationally ranked number 1, according to the AFCA Division II coaches poll, number 2 in the D2football.com, Valdosta State Blazers, and number 1 in the Super Region 2. On board to give us a little discussion about this matchup. On Tuesday, we had the chance to talk with both HBCU programs that are still in the playoffs. Obviously, UC won this Saturday, which is Miles College, and we talked to Virginia Union. So we wanted to have the chance, particular with your HBCU background. Hopefully, many people know by now. Obviously, you're a HBCU, or if you would, alumni of Texas Southern University, right there out of the SWAC. So first, talk a little about that HBCU background you have and connection, why it worked out for you and why you still see it as important today.
Yeah, first of all, man, happy Thanksgiving to y'all. It's been a day full of practice and turkey for us over here, man, in Valdosta, Georgia. So always good to get on with folks I know. Doc, I do claim you as a friend.
I appreciate it. That being said, you know, I don't want you to share the practice, but you certainly can share the turkey.
Oh man, no, but it's good to see y'all. I you know, man, my time in Texas Southern as a player and a coach, you know, it really, I learned a lot. I went to a PWI out of high school. We were getting our heads beat in, man. So I decided if I'm gonna play college football, I'm gonna at least be at home. And being from Houston, half my family went to Texas Southern, half my family went to Prairie View, and so I grew up on both of those campuses, and so I came back to Texas Southern, and just the amount of things that I've taken from, again, my time as a player and as a coach, the things that you learn on an HBCU campus on not just school, but how to navigate as a black man in this world have really helped me throughout my career and throughout my life, man. And we certainly, in our coaching ways, we try to share some of those experiences with our players. And so I always, after every game of ours, I check the SWAC stats and the MEAC stats. Got a lot of great friends and former colleagues or former people that we work for that are coaching those teams now. And so it's just kind of always been near and dear to our heart. And so I love it, man. I tell these people here, I'm an HBCU guy. Don't get it twisted. We coach where we coach, and we love it. But certainly, my heart is always going to be there in that realm of things. So that's how it's played a part for me.
Let me ask one more question before we get in and allow these gentlemen to follow up with some additional questions. You know, you hear this terminology about retread or HBCU retread coaches, which is always weird for me. And AD Drew Bryan has talked about this as well. You know, the coaching circuit is really pretty small. Mm-hmm. So you always going to churn and, as you said, have relationships with folks and move over, whether it's in what I refer to as the historically white colleges and universities, HWCUs or HBCU spaces. So I'm not even sure if there's a real thing as this HBCU retread. But when you hear that, what is the challenge and danger of coaches that are looking for opportunity that may be outside of the circle but have an HBCU background but can't get in because people are pushing back on that framework and don't even realize how deep that is in terms of where you work with your experiences and whether you can get things done regardless of what type of institution you're at.
Yeah, I think, Doc, that happens on both sides. And, you know, some guys that are in black colleges, you know, I talk to them about getting out and crossing over to the what we say in coaching as the other side. And I don't know why it's like that, but that's kind of how I came into it. They tell me I coach on the other side of the tracks, but I've been on both sides of it, and so I think it's like that on both sides. At the end of the day, either you're a good football coach or you're not. It don't matter where you coach at. And I've learned just as many things from the guys I worked with when I was at Texas Southern as I did with the guys I worked with at Texas State. And so it really doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. You can either coach and recruit, relate to young men, or you can't. And so you can be a middle school coach, man, at Phyllis Wheatley Middle School or something like that. If you can do it, you can do it, man. And so we try to stay away from those stereotypes, not let people put us in a box on either side. Man, I believe that we can coach. And so regardless of where it is and what institution it might be at, we just strive to change the hearts and minds of young people using the game of football. And that's all we want to get done. And certainly the difference is, I joke with our guys here, man, it ain't nothing like them bands in the pageantry of black college football now. It ain't. I mean, I done been to Texas A&M. I done been to all them places, and that's cool. But, man, it's nothing like hearing that neck from one of them black college bands. It's nothing like knowing you in warm-ups and they coming in, as we say. Here they come. Still to this day, I hadn't seen that. And we done coached at some places. So we try not to buy into that. A lot of great coaches across the country on every level and in the different institutions, regardless of what the institution stands for.
That's very evident when you talk about Valdosta State, that it has a rich football history in terms of championships, and you had to rebuild it. Had a great run last year, and this year you come into the playoffs with a first-round bye in terms of your status as the number one out of that Super Region 2, but you're 10-0 in what many people think is one of the toughest conferences at the Division II level to go south. With that being said, let me let Brian jump in here with a follow-up question, and then I'm going to go to AD Drew.
Coach Jackson, good evening. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Same to you, sir. Good to see you.
Good chance to talk to you again. Hey, congratulations on the season. If you would, kind of talk about the journey and the challenges of this season. You know, you guys got into the quarterfinals last year, and this year, one game after another. I mean, I know coaches like to use the 1-0 mantra and hold. I don't know who started that. I'd really like to know who started the 1-0 mantra, because I even say that now in my daily life. I tell my kids that I teach, look, I'm just trying to win today, guys. You know, let's get through the day and then we'll worry about tomorrow. But you stack up enough of those 1-0s and you end up 10-0. Talk a little bit about the journey over these 3 seasons and now this challenge in front of you, where, I mean, I think the expectations are pretty high for your team and the community. Yeah.
You know, appreciate that question. We started off rough here in 2022. Man, we went 5-6, and when you go 5-6 at Valdosta State, people they want you done. They want you out of here, man. Nobody's gonna come in my yard and put a for sale sign because they don't know what I got in the house. So I wasn't worried about that. But you know, they give you the dirty looks in Publix and they get on their Facebook and they talk about you pretty bad. You know what I mean? And so, but we came here with a vision and we came here with a plan. I didn't understand some of the challenges that were here from a financial standpoint and enrollment standpoint. The state of Georgia is a little bit different than most states when it comes down to funding its athletic programs through its state institutions. And so all of that stuff matters. Well, that's not in the head coaching book. You know, that's not what you sit around the table at the interview and talk about how you're funded. You just kind of assume, which was bad on my part, that things were done because of the success we had here. So once we adjusted and figured out how to get things done, man, 2022 is probably the most beneficial year of my career, not just as a head coach, but as a coach, because we had to figure it out with the expectations high. You know, we were trying to ride Lexus, and we had Hyundai money, and so it didn't work out. Once we figured out though that we could get what we needed the following year, had some help from some boosters along the way. But once we got our program and foundation laid down, we knew we could turn the corner. And now you look at that product from 2023 going 12-2, getting to the quarterfinals to where we are now. The challenges of this year have been the worst challenges or the highest challenges that we faced. And we had a hurricane. Mm-hmm. And our kids and staff, we were without power for 2.5 weeks. And we missed the football game, and we went on the road to Georgia State, lived in the dorm. Doc, I ain't slept in a dorm since 2006. Wow. And me and a full-size vinyl mattress had a fight one night, and it won. And so we you talking about getting up coaching football, man, I'm talking about my back hurting and coach's back hurting, and man, we had the flu run rampant through our team right after that because we integrated on somebody else's campus. And so we've had some adversity, and yet our players and our coaches, they just found a way to keep coming to work every day and keep getting the job done. And ultimately, our young men made a decision that they wanted their senior year and their junior year and whatever year they're in our program to be a good year. And so we were able to face all the adversity off the field, still come out and do what we need to do from a football standpoint and do enough to be successful. However, I still feel like we haven't played our best football game yet. We're still searching for that. And people say, well, Coach, you 10-0. Well, there's a standard that we play to here. And we haven't played a full 60 minutes of that standard. And so we're still looking for that. And I think that's what keeps us hungry and ready to play in this tournament that we're in now. Because now we went from 159 schools to 16. Well, when you cut down to 16, everybody's good. Everybody found a way to win and get here. And so now you're going to have to be playing your best ball right now. And I look forward to watching our kids try to do that on Saturday.
Great information there. AD, please.
All right, Coach Jackson, how's it going today?
Good.
Yeah. At the point in time of the hurricane that you're talking about, I was actually living down not too far from you guys. I took and I traveled through the Valdosta area. Actually, it's 2 weeks ago, and there are still damages from the hurricane that's evident in you guys when you come to you guys' camp.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of those challenges. What was it that brought you guys together during that time, having to spend 2-3 weeks on the road? It wasn't just Valdosta for your guys. You got a lot of players from Florida and Georgia who were impacted by this hurricane. So, what was it that really brought you guys together during that final?
Yeah, man, what brought us together, in my opinion, was going to bed on a Thursday night and people telling us, oh, this hurricane ain't going to be that bad. We probably still going to play on Saturday. So waking up Friday morning and there's trees down. I'm trapped in my neighborhood. Our players were trapped and everybody found a way to get to that building because they just wanted to be around one another. There was no phone service. Everybody's cell phone was not working properly, but they found a way to get to that building because they knew in that building, if we could just be together, we'd all have a chance. And I thanked our parents because our parents trusted us as coaches with their kids in a really bad time. We got the majority of the kids out of here, but our travel squad stayed, and they wanted to They wanted to be together, and they decided to play in spite of not having hot water, in spite of not having power, in spite of not having that cell phone. And you know, like I know, that cell phone is a major tool in what these guys try to get done. And so, I think that decision that they got together and made, because I asked them point blank, what do y'all want to do? We can call it good. It looks really bad, like you said, AD. Today, if you drove around Valdosta, you'll go, yeah, man, them jokers in a hurricane. The trees still down. It looked worse than that the Friday after. It looked like a war zone, like some off a movie, man. And these kids still wanted to play football. I thought that was big. Because what they remembered was the things that we did in January, February, March, and April to get us to this point. The Valdosta State doesn't pay for summer school. Division II, we just don't do it. We can't pay for your housing in the summer. Man, these guys went and got jobs. We had 122 kids stay here this summer. They got jobs. They worked at the Boys and Girls Club, and they worked out. And coaches can't even be around in Division II in the summer. So we can't go outside and work them out and things of that nature. They did that themselves. And so they didn't want all that stuff to go to waste. And when they made that decision and they told us, hey, we can go to Georgia State, we can practice at a high school one night, we can practice at Georgia Tech for 2 days, and then go up and play shorter later on that week. And these kids wanted to do that. That was enough. I knew nothing could break them from one another. And you know, when people make a decision to stay together and play for one another, it's powerful, man. It's powerful. And at that moment, I knew we had a chance. Didn't know we were going to be undefeated during the regular season, but I knew that we would always put our best foot forward in spite of the situation because we had been through something together.
Coach, we're going to take a break here. We'll come back on the other side. Hopefully you can stay with us and we get a chance to get in a little bit of the matchup with Miles College. And what do you think about Miles College? What have you seen? And give us some insight on some key players that we need to keep our eyes on in this matchup on both sides of the ball. We'll be right back after this next break.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
HBCU football fans, this year's Cricket Celebration Bowl has a new date. A champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 14th as the MEAC and SWAC champions meet once again. Join us in Atlanta for championship football, interactive fan experiences, and iconic marching bands. It's an HBCU family reunion that you don't want to miss. See who will be crowned the next HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit the Celebration Bowl.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
At AutoMasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Yes, we're back with Coach Tremaine of Valdosta State, the number one ranked team when you look at the coaches poll at the Division II level, number one in Super Region 2, as they like to call in those parts. I know I'm glad that you were able to hear the question because I know our listeners may not have heard Drew, but we got him ready to go.
Mic check, Doc?
Yep, sounding good. And we're going to come to you for the follow-up question when we start talking about this matchup with Miles College and some key folks. But I did want to say this. I noticed in your bio as I was looking at it, you have this thing called DOG training, D.O.G training, discipline, obedience, and grit. I like that. But I have this thing called 8, training mindset, active, persistent, and excellence, so I just love to know as a professor, I have it too, but I guess yours is good. You are attending those, so I'll let you make it. We'll talk about it in terms of how you can incorporate the 8 training as well. But with that being said, AD Drew, get us back on the appropriate track and ask your question.
Well, Coach Jackson, looking at the numbers, you've got one of the top offenses in Division II. You're putting up almost 45 points a game while giving up less than 10 points per game. You're averaging over 450 yards of total offense, including over 200 on the ground. And then you have a Miles team that comes in running at about $168 per game, averaging about 350 on the ground. So without giving away the secret to the sauce, although as an HBCU person, I would learn to love the recipe so that I could pass it on to Coach Shea, but but and I will say this sidebar, this is a conflicting game because when all my HBCUs are done, I've always rooted for your teams, but this week is gonna hurt where my non-HBCU team is playing one of my HBCU teams. But anyway, Coach Jackson, just kind of talk about the different styles of play that both you guys will bring to the table on Saturday, and compare and contrast 1 or 2 things for us, please.
Well, AD, first of all, I'm going to answer your question, but I do want people to know and you guys to know, in Super Region 2, 4 of the 7 teams are coached by Black men. I don't know if that's been done.
Right.
Rashawn Jordan at Wingate, obviously Dr. Parker at Virginia Union, Sam at Miles, and myself.
So we got all Black coaches this weekend.
I mean, no, because they're
Wingate lost. Yeah.
We had the potential to have 4 Black coaches in this Super Region, and I don't know that if it's like that in any other Super Region out there. And so, me again being an HBCU guy, I look at stuff like that. I go, man, well, this got to be a record, especially the way the playoffs go in Division II. Which, man, it's really hard to make the playoffs in Division II. I tease our Division I guys and go,
there's no automatics.
Yeah, this ain't no win 6 games and get rewarded by going to Hawaii for the Hawaii Bowl or something like that. You gotta come on with it, and we were undefeated and didn't know if we were gonna be the number 1 seed. We had to wait and find out like everybody else, and so because there's a whole formula that goes into it. So this ain't easy. That's why I applaud the job that Coach Shade has done. Coach Shade is a friend of mine. We played against each other 2 years ago. We talk monthly, in the summers especially, about how to make our programs better. And so I was really happy for him and his program because he saw what we were 2 years ago, and I saw what he was 2 years ago. And neither one of us are at that point. We're far beyond that point. To the point of Miles College, the numbers go out the window. Man, you're in the second round. It's 16 teams left. All that stuff is awesome. But, man, Miles College has a really good football team. They're well coached. You can't find a bad area. They might not have these explosive numbers, and it's because they control the football and they play great defense. Here are the numbers that you don't see on the tail of the tape. Defensively, them dudes not giving up red zone touchdowns. Also, defensively, they lead the country in takeaways and turnover margin. So they're not turning the ball over, and they're taking the ball away. Those are things that might not be on the tail of the tape, but when you cut the tape on, you actually see those things. And so I don't get a lot of stock into what the people, say about, oh, you averaging 40. And that has nothing to do with what's going to happen on Saturday. This is a well-coached football team. They fly around. They tackle extremely well. They hit people directly in the face. It is. They punish people. They got a really good offensive line, and they just do a great job to hurt themselves. And so we got our work cut out for us. This is probably one of the better teams that we played, and you expect that this time of the year. And so the secret to the game is there's no secret. And we're about to come and play. Regardless, and that's where it's not about HBCU, PWI. It's about, man, that's a really good football team that's about to play another good football team. And the best football team that day is the one that's going to be successful. And we've been spending all week, man, and we got 2.5-hour practice today. We ain't got time to go, turkey. We better get in this red zone and see how we can score, because these guys do that good a job. And again, man, he's our opponent this week, but I'm really happy for Coach Shade and Miles College, because what they did is historic. And 2 years ago, like us, you wouldn't have thought that they would be at this point, and then here we both are.
Brian, if you would, please follow.
I'd like to know, Coach, and this is something that I recall Coach Shade bringing up about the roster sizes and the changes or challenges that presents. And I guess I didn't. I apparently in the D2 playoffs, the roster sizes are cut at 56 or 58 is the number.
58?
Yeah, 58. That change. Obviously, you went through that with 3 games last year, so maybe you're probably more prepared for it. But if you would speak to what challenges that can create, and maybe just after the experience of last year, what did you learn about your team? What did you learn about yourself, and how you manage games in the playoffs versus the regular season?
Yeah, that's a change, that going to 58, because our league rule in the Gulf South is 64. Mm-hmm. And so when we travel, so we kind of already had it narrowed down to 64, but you're talking about taking 6 off the 64. Wow. It numbers matter this time of the season, because the longevity of the season and the physicality of the season have put you in some spots from an injury standpoint that you don't want to be in. Nobody looks like they looked in August. And so we really had to do our due diligence as a staff and really evaluate and constantly evaluate throughout the year who gives us the best chance to be successful every week. On the flip side, it's a positive when you're talking about players that want to compete to play at Valdosta State. If you're not one of our best 58 in the year, you ain't just going to magically become one of our best 58 in late November, December, right? And so we preach that to them from the time August comes, because when you're at Valdosta State, making the playoffs is expected. And so we've been talking about playoffs and postseason since we came to camp. And so we always tell our players, you better show us what you got. You got a resume of 10 games to show us what you can do, because there's going to be some sad faces when that field gets announced and we have to cut 6 or 10 off of what we would normally travel. At home, we dress 80. Well, now you're talking about dressing 58. And so from a player standpoint, they have to constantly compete. And from a coach standpoint, we have to continuously evaluate our roster on who can help us. We're at home the last game of the regular season, we might have played some guys on special teams to relieve some other guys in other places. But that ain't the case no more. Yet those guys can't get relief. You don't get a breather on kickoff when you're the starting free safety. In the playoffs, you got to go. And so from a strategy standpoint, it could change some things. But most of all, it's just a different mentality. We call it the fighting 58. Our 58 got to go fight. And there has been some sad faces. You know, we took it all the way through today because we had the bye week. And I had to call some guys in before we left to say, hey, man, this week it ain't you. You 6 guys, you're going to have to stay at home because we believe these guys give us the best chance of winning. And so, again, that's something else in Division II that people don't understand. We get the low end of the stick in Division II, in my opinion. Our ESPN streams don't work like the upper levels. We just get some bad end of the sticks, right? We're on buses for hours, but yet we have to do things that other levels don't have to do. Cut down to 58. Have our roster managed all season. That's why I laugh at people when they get to talk about NIL and, we only going to get 105. Well, we get 58 when it counts. And so you telling me about 105, man, please. I'm talking about 58 dudes. And so you look like the NFL. I've done a lot of NFL internships, and I do those because I'm always trying to figure out how people build their roster. How many linemen do you take? How many skill guys do you take? The rules changed in the league on kickoff. A lot of DBs lost jobs when that rule changed because now they can go get more linebackers to play that style of kickoff. That stuff intrigues me. The roster management intrigues me. And so I think we've got it narrowed down to what works for us, but it's definitely a challenge. And I bet you if you talk to any Division II coach in the country that's in this tournament, they'll tell you the same thing.
Appreciate that. Let me follow up on this type of question. I know from a coaching perspective, you really want to look at things from a team perspective. Mm-hmm. But if you would allow me in this, talk about 1 or 2 matchups from a player that's really been outstanding for you, but happens to be lining up in some situations or maybe in multiple situations with one of the better players from Miles, at least from what you saw on tape. Can you tell me 1 or 2 of those matchups that we should keep our eyes on this Saturday? It's interesting when you said that. So now I understand that it wasn't just the HBCU, SIAC, CIAA thing in terms of the streaming product that AD Drew was trying to work on, but that's kind of across the board for D2. So it's a good thing to know.
Yeah. So here's the matchup: their defensive line versus our offensive line.
Okay.
Man, these dudes got 4 jokers up there that can rush. And here's how I know that they teach them to rush. They rush the run. They don't play the run. They rush the run. They swimming and getting it. And as a D-line coach, it's refreshing to me until I got to play against it. And you know, they get you because they're not overly big, but they're overly active. And so our offensive line is gonna have we gotta bring our lunch pail this week. And that's not an individual matchup. That's the matchup in every football game that counts, and even more so this week. These guys got 4 D linemen that have made a lot of plays, rush the quarterback, not sack, fumble, make the quarterback pop it up, somebody get a pick. And then I would say our quarterback versus their secondary.
Okay.
They got 4 DBs that can go, especially the 2 safeties back there. Those guys can go, and the 2 safeties on the back end is the reason why they beat Carson Newman.
Yeah.
Just made a great play at the end, man, a real athletic interception at the end. And, you know, Carson Newman is an option team. They all of a sudden wanted to be air raid at the end, but they made them pay for it. And so those are 2 critical areas that we've got to be really good at because they do a great job of disguising coverages. And when you add the rush on top of the disguise, it presents problems. And here's the deal. It ain't nothing that we ain't never seen, but it's the way that they do it and how hard they play that really stands out when you're watching tape. They got a quarterback that manages the game extremely well, and the Gennaro Scott kid, the running back, he's going to get you the hard yards. He's averaging 5 yards a carry. Well, give him 2 carries, that's a first down. So we got to try to figure out how to get off blocks. And they got a younger offensive line, but they play physical too. But those two matchups that I mentioned earlier, I think that's going to be the key to the game. The D-line versus our O-line, and then our quarterback versus their secondary. That's where the game is going to be won. They rely heavily on their defense. And it's proven to work for them in the 10 games that they won, especially.
I promise to get you out on this one. We'll take a break and we'll come back and close things out with AD and Bryan. Appreciate you for taking this extra time on Thanksgiving, particularly when you get it done. I wanted to ask you from this perspective, taking it back off the field in more of a philosophical perspective. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of fans at HBCUs, rightfully so, when you get into some of these, again, as I refer to it as HBCUs versus HWCUs, particularly at the same level, whether it's D2 or at the FCS level, those matchups. And obviously the goal in the SWAC and the MEAC in terms of a regular season, like any conference, is to win your conference championship. And in this case, when those two teams, they go to Celebration Bowl, and oftentimes that matchup will feature what will ultimately become a national black college champion. But there are cases like you saw with North Carolina Central last year, FAMU a couple of years ago, where you might have the one slip up, great game between two teams that are equally matched up. And because you got the divisional thing, at least in the SWAC, they can't play again. So you get a chance to get maybe an outside large playoffs. Obviously, Tennessee State and OVC, they are in the playoffs this year outside of the other one. But do you believe, being on both sides, your experience of what you were at Texas Southern, your experience at the higher level of FBS, this experience on the West Coast in terms of the D2, if you would, talking about Colorado when you were there, and now in the Deep South in terms of Valdosta State, perennial championship level program in many ways. Do you believe that'll help you? Not to say that we want to push you out the door. I don't want my Valdosta folks mad at you. But if you just play along with this, if you have the opportunity to go back to HBCU, wherever it may be, certainly the next level, do you believe that total part of your package and the experience of what you've seen on this side that has allowed you to be successful will help you if you ever get the opportunity to come to the HBCU on the FCS level?
Yeah, Doc, I do, and I believe that because I've been able to see the line play on both sides. The game is won and decided in the line play. And so when I was at Texas State and we would watch the Prairie Views and the Texas Southerns play common opponents like Nickel State and Rice and people like that, the game was not won because of the skill or lack of skill guys. In most cases, the SWAC in general has equal to or better than skill guys than in the lower level of the G5 and certainly in the FCS. Where the game is different is in the line play, and not just in the line play, but in the depth of the line play. Okay. And so I'll give you this example. When I was at Texas Southern, we believed in the line play. But boy, if there was a receiver that could make the crowd stand up, we was gonna go get that receiver. Because that's what it is. We're gonna throw that ball up, and the trumpet's gonna stand up, and we wanted to hear them trumpets. But at Texas State, we were gonna go get the right tackle that was 6'7", 290 pounds that we could develop into being a monster. And we might not have that good looking wide out, but we were going to be able to run that ball and get that timeout because we were going to be bigger than you in the trench. Well, as you look at it even today, we've crossed over with some guys. It's just different in the line play. I mean, you cut on the skill. If it was just a straight line race, man, it's some dangerous jokers in HBCU football that can play anywhere. And you see that with this transfer portal deal going, right? Like, some jokers that can play anywhere, but in the line play is where the game is won, and at least where the game is controlled more on both sides. If I got a great 3 technique and you got a little squatty guard, we're gonna kill you. That's just where it is. And so I think my experience in hearing that and seeing that for myself and recruiting both sides for myself, I think that definitely would help, because I've always said, if HBCUs, and a lot of them do it, like I think the guys in North Carolina Central do it right. I think Chennis at South Carolina State does it the right way, but Chennis is a line coach. And so that area of the program is going to always be good because he's a line coach. But
so do you see that with Southern and Jackson State in terms of their success this year?
Yeah, absolutely. With Jackson State, I haven't seen Southern on tape.
Okay,
but just from the prime era to now, Jackson State took a D lineman from us. He had came to campus and was on our campus, and they came and got one from us. And now he making plays from them. And so that's where it's won at, man. It's won in the line play. And if it ain't won, it's controlled. Yeah. And you got to have not just your first 5 O-linemen or your first 4. You've got to have depth. If you don't have 15 to 20 offensive linemen, don't tell nobody you're going to win the championship. It ain't happening because those guys get hurt in places that you don't really see them hurt, but they hurting. And so that block in August ain't the same in November when those guys get dinged, and they work more than everybody. It just is what it is. And so I think by seeing it and recruiting it, the line play, I think it would help. And I'll give you this tidbit too. A lot of the issues that I've run across with recruiting against HBCUs is just that they just don't put a lot of stock in the line play. Mm-hmm. It ain't, and it's the depth of it. Okay, I got my first 5. Well, you're trying to play 14 games, man. Like, guys get hurt in practice more than they do in the game, just being honest. And so you got to have linemen. I'm proud that we got 23 offensive linemen. And so when you got 23 offensive linemen, all of them ain't ready to play, but all of them, though, the first team you got ain't taking all the reps in practice either. And so you're eliminating a lot of the wear and tear over time just on guys' knees, backs, shoulders. Those are things that get hurt first. And so having that inside knowledge, which now probably gave it to somebody else, they're going to go recruit all the linemen from us. But just having that knowledge, I definitely think it could help down the line.
Appreciate you, Coach. As I promised, I told you I'd get you out on this. We're going to take our last break. We'll come back on the other side. And as I promised AD Drew, even though he didn't like to, we're going to talk a little bit about the Tuskegee, Alabama State game earlier today. Coach, we will be checking it out on Saturday. So keep us updated. Win or lose, we're going to be excited about however the outcome of this game comes because we got an HBCU guy involved. And so with that being said, I normally won't do this for historically white colleges, but just for you, I'm going to say it. Go Blazers.
Go Blazers.
Oh, that was hard.
Blazers.
That was hard.
But don't go too hard.
Get out of here, man. I can't believe it. I'm going to try to.
Nah, you my boy, Tremaine.
Before we get out.
I appreciate you. Thank
All
you.
right, take care, Coach Jackson.
HBCU football fans, a champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 14th. MEAC champions, SWAC champions, the Cricket Celebration Bowl, crowning an HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
ESPN Band of the Year returns to Atlanta on December 13th. 4 marching bands will qualify for the big stage, where 2 national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for rankings updates throughout the season. And join us at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 13th. For event and ticket information, visit bandoftheyear.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Fulford, Professor Drew. Part of that Sunday night show that you all get, Sports Rap with Bryan and AD. That being said, we're going to get into breaking down some analysis of these next couple of matchups we got. But before we do that, shout out to Jackson State's Terrell, named finalist for Jerry Rice Award. A couple of other HBCUs are involved in it. Sanders Ellis from Tennessee State, Jason Collins Jr. from Morgan State on the list. You got PC Taylor, finalist for the Eddie Robinson Award. Obvious Chinnis Berry, finalist for the Eddie Robinson Award. So that's pretty nice out there. South Carolina State's Phoenix, North Carolina Central's Taylor, named finalist for the Walter Payton Award. And so good things are happening out there in HBCUs. Make sure you kick that up. Daniel Richards is on there for FAMU as a grad for the Walter Payton Award, as well as Irv Mulligan of Jackson State, to give you some of those outstanding names out there. I'm going to go straight to you, Drew. You can give your updates you wanted, and then get in a little bit of your thoughts in terms of this Alabama State Tuskegee Golden Tigers matchup.
I was saying, I thought Eddie George was also finalist for the Eddie Robinson Award. Also,
he actually is. I'm glad you added that. Didn't want to leave him out, and you're actually right. A lot of that I was doing kind of in my head, so I'm glad that you made sure we got them all out there. And if we miss one or two, we'll make sure we get it as we get a little closer to it. It wasn't on purpose, so thank you for getting that in. Drew, you always give us HBCU insight that we might not naturally get as we focus in a lot of ways day to day and at the FCS level because of our associations. But you've always had, an affection to make sure that mid-majors, I like to call them, get their due. So today we had that D2 FCS matchup. Obviously, we talked about the overall numbers, but specifically about this game, what were some of the things that concern you in this matchup you saw? Obviously, you talked a little bit about some defensive lapses, but what else in terms of this matchup concern you with Alabama State defeating the Golden Tigers of Tuskegee 34-6?
One of the first things that concerned me was basic defensive football that was not being played, where Tuskegee gave up those first 3 touchdowns on 3 brain farts on the defense, not knowing who had who. That's concerning come week 11. Was Tuskegee just mailing it in and upset that they had to stay on campus an extra week to be playing the Turkey Day game? Or because I don't think it definitely wasn't talent, because that was not a big dramatic play that they did. You could kind of say scheme, but I mean the scheme was a basic scheme that should have been covered. So something else that concerns me is the attendance at this game.
You did put that up.
The reported attendance was 21,567, but when you looked at the visuals and you looked at the visiting sideline, the people were not there. So that had to be about 17,000, 18,000 on the home side, where you couldn't see it, and in the suites and in the tailgate areas and things like that. I think it is time for Tuskegee, when this contract is over with, to consider pulling back out of the Turkey Day Classic and playing on the Turkey Day Classic. It has lost its luxury. Keep the rivalry going. I'm not saying end the rivalry, but playing this game on Turkey Day is not working. Let's keep in mind, 2012, when the new ASU Stadium opened, that held the attendance record until recently, when the Jackson State games finally overtook
FAMU, yeah.
the children's record, and then FAMU overtook that number. Still, I think the Jackson State is still the number one in that stadium, but that's been in the last 2 years. So for 10 years, that opening game on Turkey Day was the game. And I could get into some of the whys if you guys want to on why this game is not working in this spot anymore. But I want to leave time for you guys to dive deep into the game before I get into that chatter.
Yeah, hold on to that because I certainly want to hear that, and maybe we can close on those final thoughts, and it'll be a good way to kind of close out and allow y'all to go get some of your pumpkin pie, or sweet potato pie, hopefully. But,
Takeout. I'm in the hotel. It's takeout.
I gotta drive to go find that.
Huh? And did you say pumpkin?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Did you say pumpkin?
Came back with the sweet potato. I was asking.
Okay, there you go.
I wonder if you can go catch it or not. Which one? So let's get into this other big matchup. And you all did a great job. For folks that didn't see the analysis yesterday from what is the top 10 matchup for me. One of the teams, FAMU, is in the top 7 at number 6, 6-5, 5-3. Alabama A&M is at 6-5, 4-3. Much like Alabama State was fighting for today, is not to be at 500 and solidify a winning season. One of these teams are going to be able to do that, while the other one will slide to 500. So it's 6 versus 8. I'm intrigued. For those that, if you would tease out a little bit as you kind of broke that down yesterday, Brian, and for folks that want to go take a deeper dive, they can go back and see O&G in terms of how y'all broke down that matchup. But your thoughts now in terms of where you may see this go, particularly with the ups and downs. Alabama A&M had told their players that a young man that we've all continued to keep our prayers with had passed. We found out that it was a mistake. His father on the West Coast thought he had got the news that was the case. His mom that is with him said it's not. And then during the show today, Alabama Tuskegee, they actually put up there and said that he's in stable condition, which I think is significant to hear that. And as you're getting your thoughts, I'll make sure that we share the name with everybody that I'm sure knows, but just for dexterity's sake, we'll do that. But if you would, Brian, go ahead and give your thoughts on it.
Well, I would imagine that for Alabama A&M, hearing that he's in stable condition versus the alternative of what we heard 24, 36 hours prior to that will bring a sense of relief for some players. But I still think it's just, Alabama A&M is coming into Bragg with motivation, because most teams. I mean, look, Tuskegee. Sorry, Drew, mailed it in. I don't know what they did. It looked like they mailed it in. Like those guys, even with the week off, and the free meal and the bus ride,
2 weeks
off, they didn't want to come out. They didn't want to come out and play. At least that's what it looked like. They made a wide receiver look like he was the greatest quarterback in the SWAC. So Alabama A&M's motivation is interesting from a couple of standpoints, and that we kind of talked about that. This young man, what's his situation? They have something to play for, get a win, finish the season for him. But also, something that probably is being less talked about is they're coming in on a 3-game winning streak. And they might be on the verge of ensuring that their coach is going to be around for another year, when a lot of folks...
Right. Or at least has the opportunity.
Yeah, he's standing on better ground. If you finish the season on a 4-game win streak, you're going to be able to stand on firmer ground going into that meeting with AD, with Dr. Paul Bryant, than maybe if you weren't on this 3-game winning streak, or say you end up losing this last game. So, the players, I don't know if they're really thinking about that. I don't know. I think they're more in tune the fact that if you look at statistically what A&M has done over the last 3 weeks, they put up some good numbers. Now, you could also say, look at the competition they played. But I will say, is FAMU's defense any better than what they played the last 3 weeks? I don't think so. Sadly, I hate to say that. So that's why I look at this contest and say there's going to be a lot of points. The biggest surprise in this ball game is if somebody's defense holds the other team to like under 20, 21. That would be the biggest shock to me if that happens. But I'm expecting this game to go each team to maybe score over the 30s. And I've said first team to get to 42 is the team that wins the ball game.
Drew, I want to get your thoughts on the matchup. And before I do that, the young man's name, I promise I would do that. Medrick Burnett Jr. And I didn't realize until it came out also that he was a transfer from Grambling. So Grambling was emotional about this. And obviously we're going to talk about their matchup because he still has some colleagues and friends over there that are playing on Saturday for the Bayou Classic in Southern. But first, your thoughts on this A&M, the agriculture schools matchup.
Well, I want to echo everything that Brian said, but I do want to focus on the newfound FAMU's offense after making the change at offensive coordinator. Yes, we have a small sample size. Well, we've got a 1-game sample size, so it's not even a sample size. It's just a blip right now. Is it a blip? Or was it the play calling beforehand that was FAMU's problem? Because you got to think about it. Until Texas Southern, sorry, Dr. Cavil, FAMU hadn't scored 30 points all season until they played Texas Southern. FAMU did not have a rushing touchdown all season until they played Texas Southern. Then, of course, we had the fiasco with Prairie View and Valley. Now, this last game, FAMU found a running game again. When is the last time we seen a running game in Tallahassee, Brian? Exactly. You can't even answer.
College.
So
undergrad.
Exactly. So now, what tape does Alabama A&M study to try to figure out what FAMU is going to do? Do they go back to the Prairie View loss? Do they go back to the Valley loss? Or do they look at last week against Bethune when they were able to pull out the 3-point victory against Bethune and figure out what trends to what trends they have to plan for? So advantage FAMU in that particular match because Alabama A&M really doesn't know what to study, 10, 11 weeks in because of this recent change that they have. And the thing is, whose defense is going to make a play? Whose defense is going to cause a turnover? Well, FAMU has not been good at causing turnovers. So I think that's an advantage Alabama A&M. I say all that to say I expect a close game. Obviously, you know who I'm going to be pulling for. But given all that, it's probably going to be a blowout one way or the other because I really think one of these two teams is going to mail it in tomorrow.
Yeah, that's an intriguing point. Well, let's switch it. We're going to go to Saturday. And uniquely enough, we got a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday lineup again. I told how I was excited about that 2 weeks ago when we first had that Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This one is obviously because of the movement of the A&M matchup with the Ags, with Rattlers versus the Bulldogs. Now we go to the Bayou Classic. Drew, I want to know your thoughts on this. Grambling State Tigers coming in 5-6, 2-5. So for them, horrible in terms of what they've been able to do in the SWAC matchup. But overall, they get a chance to go 600. And a win in the Bayou Classic is the team, your rival, that is going to represent the West would be a major statement for a first-year coach, all things considered. Or, obviously, Southern can continue the momentum, getting to 8-4 overall if they win this game and 7-1 to play the following week in Jackson where they're feeling really good. What direction you're going in this matchup? What should we look at?
Nothing would make the G-Men and the fans of the G-Men more happier than for them to give Southern a loss going into the SWAC championship game and to give Jackson State another blueprint on a way that they could possibly beat Southern. That's everybody keep in mind, who was Southern's last loss against Bryan? Oh yeah, that would be one Florida A&M University.
Okay. It's been that long, Drew. I forgot.
It's been that long. That was like one of FAMU's last wins. That's why I thought you would remember that. But but for Southern, the biggest thing for Southern, outside of getting the W, is getting out of this game healthy and continue doing the things that they have done the last 3-4 games to put themselves into position to be able to challenge Jackson State. I do think Southern is going to win. Obviously, the trend has showed you cannot bet against Terrence Graves when it comes to the Bayou Classic, no matter which team he's coaching. So until I get a new data point, I am going to continue following that trend line right there. And I'm going to go with Southern, and I'm going to go with Southern by double digits.
I'm right there with you.
Bryan, your thoughts on this?
No, I'm right there with Drew. Terrence Graves doesn't lose the Bayou. It doesn't matter who he's. Yeah, I think that's
right there. You're right. I like that.
And I mean, the serious point. I think Southern should be the more focused team because they know what's next. So yeah, you want to beat your rival, but the last thing you want to do is go into the SWAC championship game with a loss hanging over you. So this is a good opportunity here for Southern. Good opportunity for them.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Quickly, as we get out on this last one, any thoughts in terms of Virginia Union over Noah Ryan, Miles Golden Bears, Valdosta State? Obviously, if they both win, we get the HBCU matchup to crown the champion on the field. I know it's a challenge, as we just had the interview with Valdosta State head coach, Coach Jackson. So a lot of stuff there. He tried to sell it as like to any of us in terms of how talented Miles Golden Bears are, and they are, rightfully so. But then you have Lenore Ryan, Virginia Union. So the question I have is, because we have Bryan and Bryan is the betting man, I'm going to put it like this. What is the betting line that we'll end up getting a HBCU matchup over under type of thing? What would you set it at in terms of getting what would be necessary to get us to a matchup where we'd have the Virginia Union Panthers facing off against Miles Golden Bears?
Well, you're going to have a situation where I think Miles is going to go into the game as the underdog at Valdosta State. And I'll tell you, even though Virginia Union should have hosted the game, they should have hosted the game against Lenore Ryan. That one is probably closer to a pick'em, which might put Lenore Ryan as a favorite by about 2 or 3 points. So if you were to play both teams to win, Miles and Virginia Union, I'm going to guesstimate you're probably looking at a 6-1 odds of that happening.
I like it. Nice.
6-1. That's a rough estimate, unofficial, but
we'll take it.
If you had a little piece of money.
I always wanted to be able to ask the question from a betting lines perspective, because it's not my expertise, and rarely do I have Bryan and have the opportunity. So I always wanted to do that. So the fact that you broke it down like that is perfect. I had that on the record. I can sleep well now. AD Drew, I promised I'd give you a chance to give your final thoughts in terms of Tuskegee. You made the statement that maybe it's time, as the contract ends, to move in a different direction. You made it clear it's not that you don't want to play the game anymore, but not necessarily is it working for Turkey Day. Go ahead and tell us one or two of those rationales of why it's not working out.
Well, number one, everybody has to keep in mind Turkey Day, as it was when we were in school, Dr. Cavil and Bryan, has lost its luster, because at that point in time when we were in school, Dr. Cavil, Turkey Day was the Alabama State homecoming. So not only did you have the Turkey Day Classic, but you had all of the homecoming activities intertwined with that. But after the grumblings from alumni, students, and fans, they actually about 10 years ago separated homecoming from Turkey Day. And if you also remember, they also tried to move the game up to the Friday to rivalry Saturday, the same Saturday that you have the Soul Bowl, the Florida Classic. They moved it there for about 3 or 4 years in the, I want to say the early teens. Can't remember exactly when it was. It may have been the early knots when they played. The Turkey Day Classic occurred on that Saturday before Thanksgiving. That also did not work for Alabama State at that point. From a Tuskegee point of view, it would number one, you can't go to the playoffs with Turkey Day sitting out there. Number two, should something come down the line as far as a HBCU championship game on the Division II level, that would also eliminate you from that also. And number three, at least from the Tuskegee point of view, the support is not there. And ever since they moved the game off of Thanksgiving and they went to the Labor Day Classic, it has not drawn from a Tuskegee perspective. Why? Because you've had a half a generation of students and alumni who got used to that game not being on Thanksgiving. So yes, they want to check, but come on now, this is Tuskegee. Tuskegee can get checks. They can get checks elsewhere. It doesn't have to come from Alabama State on Turkey Day. And that's no offense to the Alabama State people, but I think it's time for both sides to reevaluate this opponent on this particular game. And Miles is definitely not going back in to fill in like they did when Tuskegee dropped either, because of where the Miles football program is now, and with them being a perennial playoff contender there in the SIAC. There's nobody else left in the state of Alabama for them to play. So,
so who would Alabama State play then? Who, if Tuskegee moved off, who would be an opponent?
At one point in time, it became a conference game.
They probably would go back to a conference game match.
Yeah, because I know they played Prairie View on Turkey Day. I know they played Valley on Turkey Days. Those are just two off the top of my head that I remember either watching or attending on Thanksgiving. So yeah, if they decide to keep it on there, it would have to go back to being a conference game. But Dr. Cavil, who wants to play as the road team on Thanksgiving? And then what kind of draw you gonna get? What happens when UAPB becomes that opponent on Thanksgiving? It's not gonna be Southern, and it's not gonna be Grambling. You can kiss those two goodbye. It's not gonna be Alabama A&M. So that's three opponents that you already gonna eliminate from being on that game. The other 9, does FAMU want to play them on Turkey Day, Brian? After playing in the Florida Classic, does Bethune want to play them on Turkey Day after playing in the Florida Classic? How about Alcorn? Alcorn can use a check or whatever. Who wants to play that game? That's the problem.
They want to do it after playing their major game against Jackson State.
Yes, really, the only people who don't play a quote unquote true rival game on that Saturday, Prairie View, Texas Southern, Valley, and Pine Bluff. Yep. Those are the 4 that it would be a candidate where it could make sense as far as the team, because they're not coming off a high or low of a rival game. But everybody else in the SWAC plays a rival.
The only other thing that I can see them going for is NAIA program, such as
there's none in Alabama.
No, it's not going to be in Alabama. It's going to have to be Texas College, Arkansas Baptist, because I would guess Langston might do it, but the money would have to be so high because they tend to chase the playoffs. Florida Memorial's chasing the playoffs, so those are the only 4 you got, basically. So I'm just naming a couple. I'm not saying those are but that's the challenge that you're talking about. You're right. that it's going to put some major flux in Alabama State if they can't somehow hold on to Tuskegee. And basically, the only thing I can see is basically what they offer in terms of the payout has to increase to entice folks to get in there. But great debate, perfect way to leave it. Give some thoughts for folks as they get into tomorrow's game and then Saturday, kind of close things up before we find out who's going to be the other team representing the SWAC in the Celebration Bowl for that big SWAC championship game matchup next weekend. We are planning to be there, and so we'll keep you updates. We'll see what we're going to do in that match. Will we be able to do some live programming, or will we just give you your traditional news updates that we're in the house for that championship? We'll also be in Atlanta for the Celebration Bowl. We're looking at doing something maybe prior to that, Thursday, Friday type of thing, and then something obviously Saturday, maybe even to open things up, and certainly on Sunday. So we'll have a full lineup. We'll give you some updates on what that looks like, but continue to check us out. Saturday, you get the Carlos Brown show as he gives you an update getting into the Bayou Classic as he gets prepared to do that. He teased us all really bad today in our little chat session in terms of the meals there. Well, Brian was so excited that he had to ask specific, what is that? So he knew what he was ordering, whether he went to the online to get something delivered to him for his additional
stuffed bell pepper
Saturday stuffing to make sure he watched the Bayou Classic appropriately. He wanted the food to match. So that was fascinating last there. So make sure you do that. And then obviously on Sunday, you get these two gentlemen to bring you all the things. They'll put a nice button on it and kick things off for you for the rest of the week. You got Brian and AD in Sports Rap. Thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. Also, we got a lot of other shows on the BCS network, particularly on the podcast side. Make sure you checking those out. Download the BCSN podcast and all those for those that are not already sharing it with your friends and getting us out there. We appreciate you, all the lab listeners. As we like to say, I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson, Charles Bishop, special guests. I don't even know if I want to call you guests. Y'all professors, as I said earlier. Brian Fulford, 80, Drew. Thank you for making sure you showed some of your Turkey Day with us. Go back and eat your leftovers. Be merry as we now got to spend our money for Christmas. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. Gave you a little extra time today for your Thanksgiving special. Sunday at 9 a.m. We'll break down. That'll be one of the final polls as we're nearing it for the top 7. We'll see if there's any changes at the top in that poll ranking.
Will someone switch their pick?
Yeah, is everybody holding steady? We'll see if the discussion from last Sunday changed any voters' mind. Yeah, don't tell them you said. Don't tell them. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest in the news. When we say next week, we're talking about Sunday. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyattacavil. That's Facebook, Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, both on Facebook and YouTube, as you know. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Brian?
Of course.
AD?
Guard your wallet doing those Black Friday sales, everybody. Lecture.
Dismissed.